It's basketball season. It's actually smack dab in the middle of basketball season for the NBA. We're doing a fun little segment here with Tony T where we're talking mid-season awards. If the season ended today, who would get the big time hardware? MVP, Defensive Rookie of the Year, or Player of the Year, Rookie of the Year, Coach of the Year, and Most Improved Player. Just a reminder, don't forget to like and subscribe to our YouTube page and hit the bell if you want notifications every time we post a new video. If the season were to end right now, who would you like for MVP?
Yeah, now I'm going to look at this from my perspective here, which I look at both sides of the court, offensive and defensive. So I'm gonna look here at also too. I'm gonna let you guys all know I have a Western Conference bias. I mean, when you're for these players, I mean, when you're facing the likes of the Knicks, Charlotte Hornets, Atlanta Hawks, Cleveland Cavaliers, I mean, there's just so many bad. Half the teams are bad in the East, so I'm going to be really Western Conference biased here. I'm going to go with Anthony Davis here as the midseason MVP. Look what he's done for the improvement of the Lakers. They play in the Western Conference. Everybody gets up for them. They're 41-12 straight up. His odds actually are plus 2,200 to win it. I'd like the odds here with Anthony Davis. I've talked about it before. He's brought a professional culture to this team on both ends of the court. He plays very hard. He's averaging 26 points, 9 rebounds a game. Really good offensive numbers, rating 122 points per 100 possessions when he's on the court. And I do respect Giannis, but half the teams are bad in the East, so I'm gonna look his way. Of course, LeBron James, I'll give an honorable mention, and Harden too, but and also Kawhi, who misses too many games. But my midseason MVP, Anthony Davis.
Right. What I would ask is, do you think the fact that LeBron's on his team hurts his chances? Because obviously LeBron's a contender as well.
That's a good question. But the thing is there isn't a whole lot of depth on that Laker team, so it's pretty much Kuzma can show up at times, and we have this talk about with the Lakers, where they don't have a lot of support for these two. But you're gonna have LeBron on the court as well. But a lot of these teams have at least 2 or 3 superstars on them, and I think. But one thing with Anthony Davis, what really stands out is his defensive ability and his work ethic. I think that's going to hold form here at the end of the season.
Right. You say the defense matters, and it does. But in the past, we've seen the award go to people that score. And James Harden fits that bill to a T. He's averaging 37 points a game. Does not play much defense, but I mean, the stats, they're outrageous. He scores a lot of points, especially on that Rockets team where Russell Westbrook's really not contributing as much as maybe people thought he would. Why would you not give it to James Harden? Is it just an odds thing?
Yeah, well, the thing is I look, again, it goes back to what you look at. And I'm looking at both sides, both ends of the court. And now with these advanced stats that calculate defensive efficiency, defensive ratings, how many points do you give up when you're on the court? Those are factors you can take into it as well. 2-point defense for the Lakers. Look at the improvement of the Lakers defensively since he's been on the court. Of course, the Rockets really had to make some major changes to that team, So I'm looking here at playing on both ends of the court, his production and the teammates around him, how well he plays, and as you mentioned about it's been well documented with Harden's defense. I just can't. It's hard for me to give an award to someone like that who doesn't play both ends of the court. And I know my standards are different than everyone else's. Everyone gets caught up in scoring, but again, in our industry, when we're handicapping games, looking for winners, you always have to factor in that defense, because poor defensive form, they're not going to give you many covers.
Here's my second question. In the age of analytics, which it's really big now, a lot of teams are big on these analytical stats. How much do you take into account analytics? Do you base it just on that alone, or does some of it go by feel? Because I'm sure there's a metric somewhere, kind of like wins above replacement in baseball, that you can judge all of these players and just give it to the player who has the best number in that category. Do we do it by that, or do we do some kind of gut feeling, or do you think it should be strictly based on numbers?
No, I think it's a combination of both here. I think you got to watch the games, and you've got to pay attention to some of the stats and the meaningful stats. And one thing I like to look at is points per possession when you're on the court, and that's something where Anthony Davis really thrives. I mean, the Lakers score an average of 122 points per 100 possessions when Anthony Davis is on the court. And, that's something to look at. You also have to look at the defensive ratings. How many points do you allow when you're on your court? I think when sports betting comes into play here, when people talk about it more, I think that's when defense will be a more of a focal point. I think we're probably a generation away from that happening, where people look at that stat a little bit more because their money's on it. But as gambling becomes more and more popular, I think people will start focusing more on the defensive contributions of players.
All right, so next question, defensive player of the year. Obviously, if you like Anthony Davis for MVP, he's a defensive guy. We saw it even in college. Do you like him for defensive player of the year?
Yeah, that goes hand in hand with me. I'm gonna take Anthony Davis's defense. When you look at him on the court, defensive rating, 101 points allowed per 100 possessions. A really solid rim protector, tireless worker, work ethic, strong. Look at the Lakers, how they improved defensively. With the addition of Davis, he's been the difference. Of course, he is one of the star players, and people feed off his focus on the court. And I think he definitely lifts his teammates. Now, listen, Giannis. I have a lot of respect for Giannis, but as I qualified earlier in the segment, half the teams are bad in the East. I just cannot give an award to Giannis. When you look at the Western Conference day in, day out, it's a dogfight. We're looking at teams like Memphis, Sacramento. These teams can show up and give you a game every night. I'm definitely on that board with Anthony Davis. Now, someone look at his Rudy Gobert. Again, he kind of falls under the radar, but when you look at his defensive rating, it's pretty good. He allows 102 points per 100 possessions, and one thing to note, he's got a very high offensive rating, so he's someone to look at. But the problem with Utah, this team has just been a streaky team. They have spells of very poor defensive play, and that's gonna hurt Gobert's chances in this category.
All right, so we've talked a lot about MVP, and now we only have a minute left. Rookie of the year, coach of the year, most improved player. Go.
Yeah, I like obviously Jay Morant here for the Memphis Grizzlies. The team is a winning team. He's averaging 17 points, but I like the fact that he's making 49% of his shots for a rookie. That's amazing here. I'm with John Morant here. Most improved, I'm going to go to Luka Doncic, near 29 points per game, which is 8 points greater than his rookie season. Coach of the year, Nick Nurse, Toronto Raptors. People thought the Raptors were going to dive. No, the team is competitive, could be a contender for the Eastern Conference. No Kawhi, but I'm telling you, this team plays very well and you got to credit Nurse's contributions there as head coach.